Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. This week, I'm joined by Quinny and Kevin Graham. You're back 2 weeks running. Kev, brilliant to see
Yes,
you.
yes.
Absolutely tremendous to see you both. And we are going to talk all things in the world of Celtic over the next 1 hour. We have a game to unpack, starting off 4-0 Kilmarnock at home. Quinny, a 4-0 defeat of Kilmarnock at any point is a decent result. What did you make of the performance?
I quite liked it. Yeah, it was a good game. It was a lot closer to the Falkirk game than probably the other matches that Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney have kind of headed out. A lot of surprises in the team. Actually, I've just kind of finished doing my breakdown for it and whatnot. Simpson Pussy starting was a bit of a surprise, wasn't it? The main thing that caught my eye was the return of the wee guy midfield of McGregor, McCowan, and Hatate after the way things have went in recent weeks. I thought that was quite surprising. It worked very well actually, and even Martin O'Neill in the post-match press conference, I don't know if you've heard this, but I think Martin O'Neill was a signed-up member of the Yang Gang now. So there was a lot of surprises from the weekend, to say the least. A very enjoyable game. 4 goals is always great to see, and a clean sheet even better.
Yeah, you're right. So is he in the Yang Gang? That's interesting. Does he join Ewan Martin in the Yang Gang? I think Ewan is the founding member of that said gang. Kevin Graham, as I say, Kilmarnock 4-0 at home, absolutely all over that. Enjoyed the game, enjoyed the performance. There's a freshness. There's just a freshness. I'm going to put it down to morale, Kev, because none of us know if somebody's lost the dressing room or whatever until 5 years later they're on under the cosh telling you the inside take on it, right? But there certainly was an issue with morale, bounce, energy, and momentum. And Martin O'Neill's brought that back, hasn't he?
It has, but we kind of get too carried away. I think sometimes the results are noise, really. And even though I was over the moon last Monday, there's still an overall stuff. There's still a shambles overall. We've still got the weakest squad. It's probably since Ronnie Dyler's first year, I reckon. We are where we are, and we just need to actually enjoy it. This week, the biggest default for the biggest disappointment for this week wasn't getting hammered in Denmark. It was the injuries that were picked up, the injuries to Osmond and Sarachi. And that is the only downside of this week. Getting hammered in Denmark off a team that's in a better place than you is just a better side. Aye, we didn't want that in the longer term, but that's where we are as a football club. And sometimes you've just got to put your hand up and go, well, they were just a better side than us. And they're in a better place than us. And enjoyed last Sunday and enjoyed yesterday as well. I think Quinny will probably be able to tell me more than this. I think it's just that they've got the shackles off, and they're basically, the game has been simplified in the Premiership anyway, and against domestic oppositions. It's get the ball forward. You don't need to play to a certain template. There's a wee bit of individuality come back again. There's no this horseshoe of doom. There's no this is the way we play. You've got to believe in the system. I think, Paul, when you say it's back, I don't think the players believed in what they were trying to do since probably March last year. I don't think they believed in what they were getting told to do. I think they had actually lost faith in, if we keep on doing this is going to work. And I think when we go into this season, you could actually see that they didn't believe what they were doing anymore. Yes, that could be due to the drop-off in quality that we've actually got in the squad. And I think bringing back a wee bit of chaos ball helps the lack of quality we've got in the squad. It makes it a game of percentage. It makes it a game of percentages.
We've heard about Ange Ball and Brendan Ball, and now we've got Chaos Ball, Kev.
It's maybe I've over-exaggerated that, over-egged that, but there doesn't seem to be a set style of play under Martin O'Neill. And I think maybe in Europe, we got beat off the better side. I think there was a wee bit of, we didn't really know what we're doing here. And I think they tried to revert back to Brendan type instead of going on. But mind you, their midfield absolutely ate our midfield because we miss big physical thunder bees in the middle of the park. We really do. And I think that was why Pussy played it left back, right back yesterday. I think O'Neill's looked at the size of him and went, can you go out there and do me a job? Because we can do with more physicality in this team.
Without a doubt. I'm glad we did, and we'll touch on the performance of Simpson Pusey. We've been speaking about him quite a bit because there was really no rhyme nor reason, Quinny, as to why he wasn't playing. If someone is brought over from all the signings, right, the two guys that I could probably understand because of the level they were playing at, that have come in and haven't been utilised, and I could understand this from the previous manager, are probably Ian Moura and probably Callum Osmond, if I'm being honest, right? Because he'd never played a senior game of football in his life, in his career. So I get it. And you're thinking, right, you're going to try and bring him on. But if he's been showing that kind of pace, tempo, willingness, you know, the fact that he's got a wee bit of a nasty streak, which I like about footballers as well, and he's been shown that either in the B team or in training, then he should have been called up earlier, absolutely. But guys like Simpson Pusey, it didn't make sense to me, Quinny, because he did have a bit of calibre. He was coming from Man City, who, by the way, that's fared us well in the past when it comes to bringing players from the Man City academy. First team experience, Champions League experience, yet never getting a look in. But I do agree with Kev. We do lack physicality. You look at the Martin O'Neill team of old, it was a very physical team. Simpson Pusey, Trusty, these guys that have come into the side since Martin O'Neill has taken over are very much Martin O'Neill players, Quinny. How did you think Simpson Pusey played in his first appearance?
I quite liked him. You know, I think he did everything you expect our centre back at right back to kind of do. You know, he didn't give us really any width. Actually, Trusty gave us width for like a wee minute or two in the game, if you remember that wee sequence of it panned out, you know. And off the ball, like there was a lot of sequences in the game where if you stopped it, it looked like we had a back three and Trusty was maybe even borderline a sweeper at times, the deeper of the three, you know. And I think he did good. He was clearly like a bigger man than everyone else on the pitch. You know, I think he's just, you know, strides around. He's a big unit of a guy. And I think you're right. Like you did, you know, we did miss a bit of that from playing the mighty midgets. I think he played really good, but he played some good balls into the box. But again, some of those balls he played in, we've seen Ralston kind of do it. It's been a feature of certainly this little Maloney O'Neill kind of interim era. And yeah, like I think he had a few slips early on. Martin O'Neill made some jokes about he could have subbed him after 4 minutes, and I kind of get where that all comes from. But yeah, I think he did good. And I think if like AJ is getting hamstring surgery on Tuesday, like we do need to figure like our right hand side is like, you know, Kev's saying it's the weakest squad since like kind of Dyla season 1. I would agree with that, but I would say our weaknesses are like super concentrated, where it's like everyone's injured at this position, that position. We've got nobody here, nobody there. We've got like 1,000 left wingers. We've got about 10,000 centre mids, and we've got like enough centre backs to handle such a terrible injury crisis. But it's like really concentrated, I think, where we're like weak or lacking, you know. So I think JSP, I think he had a solid debut, and I'd be happy to see him pick up from where he's left off after the international break.
We heard, of course, that after Carter Vickers' injury, Callum Osmond made it into the squad. We were able to put him in there, and he made an impact, and then he gets injured. Can we do that again? That's the question. That is the question. Can you do it again? And then, of course, the big question would be, do you bring in a striker in Shin Yamada, or do you bring in JSP, Quinny? Is it doable? And if so, do you go for a striker or a defender?
The way I heard the rules, it's like a one-time emergency thing, but surely, like, you know, maybe you could still, like, it depends on who you. Sometimes you can undo an email after you send it. I don't know if we've quite missed that window or whatever, but maybe try and just get it done again, maybe, because it's just ridiculous, isn't it? You swap them in for one. I'm getting a wee bit of banter right in the chat. I didn't buy anything when I went to the Superstore last week, just so everyone knows, right?
That's a new top, Connie. I've never seen you wearing that top before.
I've been wearing this thing for about 4 years. I did not have financial relations with that Superstore, I can confirm.
Financial relations. Kev, you know, when we're talking about morale, obviously there's so much more to this than any of us will ever know. But one final question on it, because there does seem to be a freshness. The mood has lifted, Kev. Some of these simple things, the simple things that you might just take for granted, but if they're not there, then your team won't perform for you. Does Brendan Rodgers bring too much drama to the dressing room? Does he bring too much drama to the job? Because it seemed to be a drama-fueled period during his second tenure. There was very few months that went past without some kind of drama, be that recruitment or, you know, how he's getting on with those in charge. And then there's a rat and there's stories in the Sun and all this kind of stuff. Just drama constantly, Kev. And if that is ongoing, that's going to affect the individual, I would suspect. And I always feel that the mood of the manager rubs off on the mood of the players. Could it simply be too much drama follows Brendan Rodgers and it followed him into the dressing room, Kev?
When you get Callum McGregor speaking about needing signings in the door, then you maybe know that it's seeping into the dressing room. When the only public face of the club is getting asked constantly about signings coming in the door, and at the moment when the only public face of the club's getting asked constantly, are you going to be here in 2 weeks, Martin? It's like an absolute sideshow to what's actually happening on the park. I think this is just me. This is what I believe, and it's probably rubbish. But this is what I believe. I believe that the team lost confidence towards the end of last season in the way that they were playing, and they were looking to get rejuvenated in the summer, and it didn't happen, and it just continued over. And whether Brendan's frustration at what was going on fed into the dressing room, I can't believe that he maybe phoned it in. I know I got my hamstring injury getting out of my bed at 4 o'clock, go to the toilet to come back. It's lack of strength and conditioning training, which is probably happening at Lennoxtown with the looks of things. I think the team just lost complete and utter confidence, and I can't say whether that's to do with. I can't say if that's what to do with Brendan. But again, I think if you go back to the day after the cup final when I was on, we all knew that Brendan going into the last season was going to be a sideshow, that he was going to constantly get asked that question, and it happened all summer. So I think they lost confidence in the way they were playing football, and everything that happened in the summer played out in the way that we've started the season. But I don't know if the drama caused by Brendan and the board and whatever happened fed into the dressing room. I just think it's a lack of form and a stale squad and a lack of refresh with quality that's really caused us to get here.
Yeah, there is definitely that, and we look forward to January and a refresh. Who's going to be in the hot seat though, Quinny? That's obviously a massive conversation. Kev?
I just want to pick up on what Quinny was talking about Austin Trusty going down the wing. He done more in that 10 settings than Balakwisha's done in any appearance. He looked more a winger than Balakwisha's done in that wee 10 settings.
You know, on that note, seeing how you brought him up, Balakwisha is a damning indictment on where we are in terms of a team and how we do our recruitment, Quinny, because here's a guy that has been brought in, and let's be honest, he's not required. You're talking about injuries very specific to positions. He's not required if he's a left winger. You know, that's not a position that we really need reinforcements for. He's not made an impact. I think he was involved in one goal against Motherwell, which, you know, that's all he's done since we brought him in. And apparently this was a guy that was top of the wish list for 18 months. You know, we fought with Royal Antwerp to get him into the football club. And, you know, he was a name that we discussed for months and months on end. Yet he's not made an impact. And then, you know, that really brings into view once again, the fact he was an unused sub at the weekend, is the fact that we're not using recruitment the way that we should be efficiently. The Danish team that beat us during the week, they're a tiny club. If you look at their turnover, if you look at the size of their stadium, their record signing actually isn't even as expensive as Balakwisha. Yet they're efficient, Quinny. They're efficient in what they do. And they have a system in place, an analytics system, data-driven, right? Whereby if you buy a player, there's far greater chance that player is going to fit your system because you've run them through the criteria that you're looking for. We don't seem to have any rhyme nor reason to our recruitment system as it stands. It brings up the name Paul Tisdale because, you know, over the weekend I'm talking to a few of my friends in relation to this. Brendan Rodgers was emptied. Who knows if he resigned or if he was sacked, right? Who knows? We'll find out at some point. John Kennedy leaves and Adam Sadler leaves, and the backroom team basically assembled by Brendan Rodgers is for the high jump. But Paul Tisdale's still there and Gavin Strachan's still there. And you ask the question, why? Because they're part of the failure. You know, Paul Tisdale's the talent spotter. He's responsible for Balikwisha being identified. He's responsible. Why is he still at the football club? Is it because we don't have anything else in place? Because we're kind of scrambling about trying to figure out what we're going to do in January, Quinny? Why would you place... Because Kev's right. We are basically, you know, we have Gromit and Wallace and Gromit on the train tracks, laying the tracks as the train is hurtling towards January, right? Until we get there. And then hopefully we can make moves. But how confident are you that we will when the cat in the hat's the guy that's doing the talent spotting?
So this is a funny one. I was talking about this myself on Friday with a bunch of folk, like on a stream or whatever. And the club believe that they have been doing what you said and what I'd probably agree it doesn't feel like they're doing in terms of like being a process-driven operation and being more of a kind of outcome-focused thing. I think you might have even been in the chat, Kev, actually, when we were going through that on Friday, if memory serves me. So it's a funny one because I'm kind of now, like, if Tisdale is still there and you've kind of revealed as well, PJ, that like it's maybe it wasn't completely like Brendan's guy or whatever, it's maybe just, you know, just they were all right with each other, they were, you know, happy to play nice and whatever. So we're obviously doing transfer business right now. We don't have a manager. We might not have a manager. We might have O'Neill. The chat's going mental saying that Nancy is like kind of done at this point, maybe. So maybe there's some sort of breaking news to kind of pick up on in that sense. But certainly the club thinks it's doing something that way. And the kind of analogy I ended up kind of walking myself into is like a recipe sort of thing. Like Arnie Engels' position has totally changed since Rodgers has left. You know, there's no two ways about it. And, you know, there's been one or two other little tweaks with the team, like the Johnny Kenny's, the Osmonds, etc., where it feels like more whoever was laying the recipe out is now putting the ingredients together the way they were supposed to be, rather than Brendan's attitude to being, well, I don't want to make an omelette. I'm trying to make something else or whatever, and he's just no putting the stuff together. He's no cracking eggs, or, you know, again, the food analogies can go wild quite quickly. But so I wouldn't be surprised if like Rodgers also maybe kind of because he was involved in the recruitment process, and as much as the board can turn around, and we know it's one of these kind of sneaky half truths where they say like Brendan approved everyone, like he's probably got a signature on a bit of paper somewhere, but we all seen and heard and felt that he wasn't happy with stuff. Equally to the converse of that, he's probably stopped a few transfers happening, and maybe again you just need to look at the impact Osmond's had. A lot of people quite liked Inamura and his kind of fleeting kind of performances. So is the team is very underserved. I think we all agree on that. But with the right manager and just with that kind of disruption factor coming out of it, I say the weakness is quite focused. Like 2 or 3 signings could quite quickly go a long way to helping where the team balance is. So I think this is massive for Tisdale. Like January, there's no Rodgers influence and no Rodgers phone book, and no, it's firmly the club that are doing all this business. If we do have Nancy around the corner, the only thing you can anticipate he would be bringing in is anyone we signed from MLS. Anything outside of that, you know, it's been the club that's been working on it. So this January window will kind of reveal a lot, I think, and it'll be a big, like, you know, like there'll be no escaping it. It will be Tisdale's name on the tin. It will be, you know, whoever's. So it's quite interesting in that regard. The now.
I think it's already been on the tin the last couple of transfer windows, because he was a consultant with us last summer when we brought in Engels, Ida, and can't remember who else we brought in. Trusty, when we brought in that transfer window. It has been revealed that he worked with us because he came up with a data system that identified players that would work in a Celtic team, the way that we want to play football, possession-based and attacking. So seemingly he's got that data model that identifies players that will fit into that. I think that was confirmed at the meeting that you had, Paul, the collective meeting that you had, that Celtic are quite confident and they have got a data model, but they just didn't bleat about it or boast about it like Hearts Day and stuff like that. And they say they were quite happy with it. So I think you're getting to the point here where I think Tisdale's been there for a little while now, and our recruitment's been really, really poor over that period. It's been poor since Rodgers came back. But any manager that Celtic are speaking to, Celtic are going to be going, by the way, we've got all of that in place. With regards to rightly or wrongly, they're going to be telling them they've got all of that in place, because they tell Rodgers it was all sorted as well, in that, didn't they? Or maybe it was. We'll never know about the Mark Wall 9 that they signed. We do not know, because Rodgers discarded them out the door right away. I think the other thing that what we've got to have a look at is 50% of all football transfers fail anyway, with folk coming into the club. But at the moment at Celtic, it's up about 80-90% of them seem to be failing. So that needs to have a look at. We need to really have a look at that. And they're failing at this precise moment in time. They're not contributing. And it's maybe something that they need to tweak and maybe have a look at. Go, why have these guys not hit the ground the way that we expected? Was it the coach? Because I think the next guy that we'll bring in will be a coach. It will not be a manager type. It will be a guy who fits into our supposed world-class system that they believe that we have. That, as I say, they believe that we have there. Coaches, I'm going to other shop here. The coaches, the Gavin Stratton one, has he not became the set piece coach? Was his role not slightly tweaked over the last couple of years?
I wasn't aware that he was the set piece coach, but I'm a wee bit more cynical about it, Kev.
I've heard via maybe here or somewhere else that he took credit for the set pieces, or somebody in the team gave him credit for the set pieces, the way that they were working them. So that led me to believe that his role had slightly changed in the dugout. I might be completely wrong there.
I'm cynical on the Strachan still being there.
And you're quite right to be. You're quite right to be.
I'll explain my thinking behind it. I'm quite cynical by nature, right? But when a backroom team gets emptied and he's still sitting there, and Gordon Strachan's talking about us appointing somebody at the end of December, and I'm not thinking it's due to the fact that he's got two laddies at the park. I think it's because there's a clique mentality at Celtic, and Neil Lennon's part of it, which is why he was throwing grenades a few weeks ago, because he's ITK. And if that's the way we operate, and if you're in Dermot Desmond's pocket, which means you're okay, that's not healthy. That's not a healthy way to run any organisation, never mind our football club, right? So if Strachan is in there, regardless of what he's doing, Kev, with free kicks, shies and corners, right? If he's in there because he's part of the clique, empty him. Absolutely empty him with the rest of the guys, Quinny. It's not something that I'm comfortable with. I'm quite cynical about that. And in relation to false promises, I think Kevin's right. I think, regardless of what you say about Brendan Rodgers, he might go away thinking my legacy's still intact. I won 2 doubles and we move on. But he was sold a different vision in relation to the recruitment. He's spoken about that, and I'm sure he will speak about it in the future. But what scares me a little bit is the next manager might be getting sold a vision of, we've got a data system, we've got what was it they called it now? A game model analyst. That's what it was, Kev, in that meeting that we had with Michael Nicholson. So Paul Tisdale had come in to analyse Celtic's game first, before then thinking, right, this is the type of player that I need to go out and identify. Right, and that sounds brilliant. But then you bring in guys that either don't fit the system or aren't played, and then it doesn't work. So it doesn't matter how great it sounds. Does that concern you, Quinny, that the current recruitment regime will still be in place regardless of any new manager coming in?
I think it's worrying if we stay in the same sort of price bracket we're in. I don't mind Celtic trying to unearth gems and trying to, give talents a shot, or try and take a guy that's maybe tried to make it to the big league, but maybe it was a step too soon, too early, and then, they fall down to kind of our level or whatever. Don't mind us operating in that sense, but the economics of everything has just moved on so far that pulling Nicholas Kuhn's out of Vienna, isn't he, and Matt O'Reilly's out of MK Dons and Fulham's and whatever. It's not bankable week on season on season, and you really need. So I'm happy enough with just the reality of the situation, but I'm not happy with how we seem to be very slow at just adjusting our sights to really where we should be. It's one of the things I was really excited about Balikwisha when we got him. It was very much the exact same as Kyogo and Dyson when we brought them in, but those guys in the leagues where we're picking them out from were the best guys in the league. They were top goal scorers, they were player of the year, they were title winners. And as much as guys like Tanecki can still come in and make an impact and can still be good players in the team, even guys like Osmond and Kenny, as we're chatting about, when we're going into other leagues that are on par or below Scotland, we should be getting the best players available, especially if they're young up and coming ones. We shouldn't be looking for the, with all due respect, maybe like the Yangs and the these other players that we've had that are just like a rundown, or just maybe a bit more of a risk factor on them making the jump, making the leap. And that's kind of what the money should do for you, is just taking less risk out the equation. As we've seen with Balikwisha, it's no guarantee that they're going to come in, hit the ground running and fit like a glove for every time the Kyogo one works out, for example. But our hit rate's 50-50, like you say. I think if we totally moved up the scope, you probably move that to 2/3 versus a third, or maybe 3/4 against a quarter, depending on really who we're talking about and what players you go for. So it's, as I said earlier, I think January, I think I'll have my opinion kind of fully formed by then. I know everyone's saying, like Kev as well, like Tisdale's been here and he's got his fingerprints all over it already. But I do think there was two chefs at the recipe throughout Tisdale and Rodgers' time. I don't think they were on completely the same page. And I don't think it was ever really working in unison. We really felt that in this window. So I think January, it should be like in unison. There should be no excuses for the problems are very clear, where we're missing guys. And they've had since the end of the summer to work on it. And as time has went on, it's only made it worse because there's more injuries. We've lost games, So there's like, as I say, there's just no excuses in January for fix the team.
I think there's always going to be more than two chefs, Quinny. Even
what's
though
all the food analogies, guys? Come on.
I'm just going with it because Quinny's gone with it. I'm just
We're
rolling with it.
eggs and making French toast and all sorts today.
I'm just rolling with it. I'm just rolling because Quinny's doing the food. I think there's always going to be the way that we do transfers. And again, going back to that meeting that you had, Paul, even though nothing was said, I think there was a slight lift over to go, yes, the departments were all, every side that comes in, the departments are all aligned when these signings come in. And I think that's the way at most football clubs. And I don't think... you've got the scouting guys, you'll have the data guys, then you'll have the financial boys, then you'll have the manager. And they've all got to be aligned on these signings coming in. One of my worries that came out of that meeting is, why would somebody like Brian Wilson no sign off on a signing unless it was taken as the financial aspect of it was completely wild, right? So you have to go to your board to get sign off for these signings. So unless it's putting the club at financial risk, which it's clearly no, like because of the amount of money that we've got in the bank.
Use the McKeown example, Kev. It's clearly not when it's 200 grand.
It's clearly no. So why would somebody sitting in a boardroom who probably knows just as much as football as me about scouting, about data, about what the team needs, why could they say, no, I didn't like this boy on an ability-wise? I mean, surely when you go to the board, unless you're spending £25 million on the player, the sign-off should be high, no problem. Because of the market we're actually shopping in. That was a bit... So, yes, they did lift the lid a bit. That is like a sort of committee thing with you. And yeah. I think you're getting to the point where you've probably seen that Rodgers just probably wanted bodies in the door and went and started agreeing to guys coming in, like your Kaneki and your Balikwisha, and that, knowing full well that they might not fit and it's not the guys that you actually wanted. It's not as if Rodgers has not had previous to that, doing that in his time working with committees.
Yeah, Liverpool answer. But see, the thing though, right, is see if it's going to a group of people, Quinny, and within that group of people, you've got people, Brian Wilson. I'm not taking his football expertise over anybody's. So this is where, and I think I pitched this a wee while ago. What about Martin O'Neill's future? Well, he continually says, look, I'm interim, I'm not going to be here. When pushed, he said it would be nice to lead us out in a cup final. Of course it would be. He went and watched St Mirren. They're our next league opponents as well. Who knows what's going to happen, right? However, I would like to see far more football heads. So if you're talking about football in the boardroom, I would much rather that particular board member have any kind of knowledge and experience of working within football. You know what I mean, Quinny? And this goes right back. It's like Martin O'Neill won 2 European Cups on a bounce for Nottingham Forest. He won the European Cup in 1980. That was the season. This is the strange thing that football does. So 1980, Billy McNeil's side gets us to the quarterfinals of the European Cup, and we beat Real Madrid 2-0 at Celtic Park. We go over to the Bernabeu, they beat us 3-0. Dodgy refereeing decisions. We'll get back to Don Robertson at some point today, right? So we get bounced out in the quarters, Quinny. We're never in Europe again post-Christmas. until Martin O'Neill comes in. Martin O'Neill, who won the European Cup the last time as a player, the last time that we were in Europe beyond Christmas. So this is a man whose knowledge is absolutely incredible. I mean, he is, for me, like a statesman-like figure who in a boardroom would be a strong character. It's no jobs for the boys here, Quinny. I would take Martin O'Neill over any of the people in the boardroom when it comes to making a football decision.
I don't mind Martin O'Neill kind of being elevated to some sort of director position just on the basis of who he is. He is like a lawyer or something, I think, anyway, or he has some sort of education kind of background, doesn't he? Some sort of professional kind of
studied law whilst going to watch the Jack the Ripper. Jack, what's his name? The Yorkshire Ripper. He went to watch the Yorkshire Ripper trial. Right, he's a fascinating individual, as Martin O'Neill. So he's studying law, and like in his spare time, he's going to court to watch the trial of the Yorkshire Ripper. Quinny, this is the type of guy I want in my boardroom.
Yeah, so, well, yeah, I didn't know the detail of that, but yeah, I guess that just adds to it. But again, someone that's kind of business minded, I suppose he's got that quite tangibly in his locker, as well as all the kind of football related stuff. Again, any of the clubs that we do kind of measure ourselves against, they all have, you know, football figures involved in the team. And we spoke about it on this channel a few times, talking about how Brendan didn't really seem to be involved in the recruitment process. Like, nobody was saying, oh, I spoke to Brendan and I'm buzzing to play for Celtic, he's got a plan for me in the team, or, you know, like similar to how we had it with Ange and maybe another manager's gone by. And if that's the case, then, you know, who's pitching Celtic? Who's closing these deals? Who's trying to... Because again, there will be negotiations and you've got to, you know, it kind of comes into that realm, doesn't it? And, you know, that's where the problem of like board people, Michael Nicholson and whoever doing this stuff is maybe a shortcoming, because if Ajax send out Van der Sar or Overmars or whoever works for them at the moment, and you get the likes of Bayern Munich that send, you know, all these clubs have players associated to them. We've seen the effect even Gerrard had on Rangers, just even him being there. Was that pull on people? People are always kind of, especially in football, you know, if we're trying to sign a player and we send, you know, Martin O'Neill to go and do the one-on-one with them, number one, you get a good test of character out of somebody like Martin O'Neill who really knows, like, to make it in this changing room, to play away at Ross County on a Tuesday and all the rest of it, like what you need to be made of. But number two, that's like, for the player's perspective, they're then engaging with like an icon, a kind of legend or whatever, rather than just like, for all intents and purposes, everyone sees agents as like the bottom feeders of football, and really kind of corporate executives, that kind of raft of the football ecosystem is kind of all in the same bucket. I don't think players take them as seriously as they would like former players and managers, if you get me. I think that's something I'm trying to get across when I'm saying this. So I don't mind, like, it's no jobs for the boys, like you say, but actual people, like, you know, Aidan McGeady even came up with a conversation about this about a year ago. You know, it doesn't, you know, it could be anyone, but someone who wants to be in that position. Again, it's similar to the Sean Maloney pathway manager conversation. If that's the job he wants to do, then that's brilliant, you know. And if that's the job that somebody like McGeady or O'Neill or, you know, whoever you want to put in the picture, that's the job they want to do, then that could be great for us, because you get someone to actually close deals for you, rather than sending the CEO and the chief finance officer to penny pinch on weekly wages and bonuses or whatever they do.
Well, who else would you rather do a deal for you? You're the finance guy and the contracts guy. That was the answer they gave us. Let's bring in some of these comments before we talk about some of the performances yesterday, starting off with multi-coded pipe. How can they ban the Green Brigade as a whole? Not everyone was involved. Nowhere near it. Yeah, collective punishment has been levied out to the Green Brigade at the weekend. I'll ask you this one, Kev. What was your thoughts on the events? I just think it was opportunistic by the club.
Seems that way. Obviously, I was at the game and I sat above and I saw more than a handful, not the whole section, leave very hurriedly to go and get involved in the incident underneath the stand. And you saw them running back in, and you saw some of them running up the stand and like going in different directions. You were wonder what went on there. The video that Celtic released didn't look good. That's what I saw when I was looking down above it. I'm going, what's actually going on there? But then I have seen some videos of the incident in the concourse. My daughter showed me them, and nobody comes at it well, truthfully. Stewards, police, certain members of that were trying to help the guy as well. I do not believe in collective punishment, and that's something that I've went on about for ages. And yes, it does seem a bit coincidental that they've done it, especially when one side, the Green Brigade side, says, well, we highlighted this straight after the game to the SLO. It's not something that we're trying to hide behind. We highlighted it. It seemed a bit, as you call it, as you say, opportunistic. There you go. That was the word I was trying to look for. My brain stopped there for a minute. It did seem like that, but they've maybe got a point of the fact that some stewards and the police were verbally pushed about a bit, but that doesn't mean that it should be a collective punishment for 600 when there's only maybe about, I can't even say the numbers that were involved. But if you look at the video, I think the videos will come out. I think they're on TikTok. That's where my daughter showed me them. And then they side come at it very well. So obviously there's body cam footage. Obviously there's CCTV footage. I must admit, even now, I left the stadium yesterday, and what I do, I come out 412 and I turn to the left to go back under the north stand to go to the coach park at the back. This season they've stopped you doing that. There's a line of stewards, and the stewards are complete and utter little Hitlers, like pushing boys back, telling you can't walk under it, in people's faces, telling them you can't walk this way, can't walk this way. You have to go round, so they're forcing us round in front of the stadium, causing congestion going that way instead of people coming out and going the natural direction that they would go. So they're causing a bottleneck going round where the away end, where the away fans come out as well. So they're forcing fans to go around that. But the attitude of the stewards is absolutely frightening, and they're not afraid to put their hand on you to actually stop you going through. I've had a couple of arguments, truthfully, and I've came across a bit old manish and gone, I've walked this way for 22 years without any problem. I am going underneath the stand to walk that way. So I come out the stadium after the teams went round, right? So it's not as if I'm leaving right on the final whistle. The team comes round, I applaud them. Then I go out, go to the toilet. Nearly 50. I need to go to the toilet because
there's a wee thread developing here with Kev's toilet habits.
Just go. My daughter, she goes and uses the ladies as well, and we go down. So it's at least 15 minutes, maybe 10-15 minutes after the final whistle, and they'll still stop you going underneath that stand when there's nobody there. There is not a soul there, and that's what I pointed out yesterday to one of them. I said, there's nobody here. Why are you stopping me going that way? Wait till the gates home, then open the gates, and you can walk under that way anyway. It's ridiculous, but it's the attitude of the stewards. The attitude of the stewards is not on. And I've yet, when you ask them, why are you doing this? I can't give you a reason.
It's as if they've been briefed, Kev. It's almost as if they've been briefed that this is the kind of tactic here. And I can understand why that would noise people up. And you're right, in relation to that, this is a fan base. You're paid to be there. You're paying to be in the stadium. And you've been going, as you say, Kev, you've been going since when? 1983. And they're treating you like that. They're not even treating you like... People go on about fans being treated like customers. They're not even treating you like a customer. They're treating you like you are an issue, like you're an inconvenience. We don't actually want you to be here. And I think this is where the frustration lies. And the Green Brigade obviously have been banned for 6 games as a result of that. But Kev, you just keep taking them to task when you're leaving. You continue to be that grumpy old guy.
I've seen a couple of folk in the comments saying, what happens if there's a crush if you turn out and go to the left and go under that north stand? I've sat in that stand since it's been rebuilt. I've walked that way back to that bus park for 20 years. European nights, league winning nights against Rangers. There's never been a problem walking underneath that stand at the final whistle. Never.
Yeah.
So why are you now making it now a problem? Why are you making it a problem now?
They're creating a problem. Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to be talking about some of the performances before we dive back into the comments. And I'm going to start off with Johnny Kenny. Johnny Kenny, 4 goals in 4 games for Johnny. And Jungle Lion was just informing us that he's just been called up to the Ireland squad today. So tremendous, actually. His return has been 5 goals in 11 appearances this season. Not all of those games were starts either. 563 minutes, 5 goals. That's a decent return, Quinny. This is a guy unfashionable. He's been thrust into the number 9 jersey really because of injuries and players leaving the football club. But I think he's taken it on board. I didn't think he played well against Midtjylland. I don't think we did as a team, to be fair, but he didn't do what he's good at and what he's shown in domestic games that he's good at. But certainly since Martin O'Neill's came back, he's been a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I think even when he came off the bench, was it against Braga even? Yeah, I'm sure it was Braga. He came off the bench for Iheanacho, didn't he?
Yeah.
Before the Hearts game and so on. I think he's done really well with the opportunities came his way. I think it's one of those ones where you can clearly see, especially at the weekend, like he's just a really good striker to have in and around the box in the sense of like he'll do those fundamentals that we don't always have in the forward area, especially like just this season with the kind of maybe even the post Kyogo kind of era, as it were, like Ida and whatever else. So it's great to see he's taking his opportunity with 2 hands, and especially now with the injury to Osmond, it's really like his position right now for the foreseeable. I think O'Neill said Iheanacho's still going to be injured for a few weeks, so he'll probably be back after the international break, but probably not right away. And I think for like Kenny, it's one of these guys where the club signs him on a 4-year contract on the basis of getting some use out of him, be able to actually play him. I don't think anyone's signing Kenny to that kind of contract to secure a transfer value or anything like that. I think it's to try and use him as much as possible when you need him. And, this is kind of this is where he earns his money, I guess. Even if this is maybe, Iheanacho comes back fit, we buy somebody in January and maybe like he goes right back out into the fringes again. He's on 5 goals already, and I'm sure he'll be eyeing up 10 or between now and Christmas with all the games that'll be coming. It's great to see he's pulling his weight and he's taking his chance. And, he looked nippy against Braga. That's the reason I brought it up, because against Midtjylland, he definitely didn't influence the game, but I did feel he was kind of by himself. He was quite disconnected from the rest of the team, just because of how Midtjylland had kind of played. So yeah, again, nice to see him opening the scoring at the weekend. And yeah, he's went from unfashionable to, necessary very quickly, hasn't he?
He has. There's a conversation, Kev, that Quinny and I had near the time that Kenny signs his contract, and I don't know if it was just in mood at the time. Quinny said, this is a player that could be quite useful for us, whereas I was thinking, get him out on loan. By God, I'm glad we didn't, because we had nobody else to play really, unless you're starting Shinya Mad at the weekend, Kev. What have you made of Johnny Kenny since he's came in under Martin O'Neill?
It's amazing what a difference to a striker when you get the ball into the box early, and just tell him, go and hang about that front post, because we're going to get the ball in here quick and just get in front of that defender. Do what you're good at. Look, again, there's a massive bigger picture here why Johnny Kenny's ended up front with us. There is a massive bigger picture, and I hear folk going like that. That wasn't that in the summer when you wanted them to go out on loan. Aye, because basically we thought that we were going to bring in a centre forward, and we were having a look at the bigger picture for the lad. I mean, didn't get us wrong. The board were willing to sell him to Bolton. If Bolton would have ponied up the 1.2 million, I think Celtic were looking for, the boy was off. Let's not get across that. The jersey is his now until Iheanacho comes back, and it's a joke how we've ended up with Iheanacho as well. A complete and utter joke. The player's not a joke, but the fact that he's running about playing for Celtic is a joke. Folk are going to pick me up on that, but I can what I mean. It's the whole situation that he's playing with us is a joke.
Kev, do you mean? No, I get what you mean, but is it a case of Iheanacho wasn't on our radar? Iheanacho wasn't a player that we were scouting. Iheanacho was on the Rodgers Rolodex. We signed him after the windows closed, after selling Ida. I mean, you're right, the situation was a joke.
Aye, it's a joke. And I'm not going to slag the player. The fact is we're relying on Kenny is also a sign that the club's a shambles. Again, but that's not a slight at the player. The player's came in and he's taking his chance. And that's all we can ask. We would be in a terrible place if it Johnny Kenny didn't. We would. And I didn't want him called up for Ireland because we're one injury away from like hell-breaking was here. Sorry, Johnny, I'm actually disappointed you've been called up for Ireland. I would rather that you had a couple of days off, and I'd rather you had a couple of days off and went back to Lennoxtown on Thursday, rather than getting him playing for Ireland. He's done well. That goal last week against Rangers, that's a great. That's a great header. His goal yesterday and his 2 goals against Falkirk were just poacher-esque, and that's what you're looking for him to actually do. He's doing well now. As I say, against the Danes, I gave him a bit of a bye because he didn't really get any support. He was the only man up there himself.
He was isolated. Yeah.
He was isolated. We kind of sorted it out in the second half when we brought on Osmond and Dyson, where I think adding Dyson's pace helped Osmond quite a bit. And I was really looking forward to actually seeing Osmond yesterday. And it was gutting. Really, it was more gutting than the goals that we lost. More gutting than getting the defeat. When you right away, when you see him going down, you're going, it could be season ending.
It's a tear, isn't it, rather than a pull.
And the fact that both of them are gone, Johnson and him are both gone for surgery, is possibly we've only seen him again this season. Possibly, depending. And I feel sorry for the guy. I really do feel sorry for the guy. So we are relying on Kenny, and hopefully it continues.
Really. I hope so. I mean, I'm just looking at the fixture. So Ireland play Portugal on Thursday night, and that's a home fixture. Then they're away to Hungary on the Sunday. So I wonder if Kevin McCluskey will manage to go and watch that game. Kev takes in a lot of Hungarian football over there. Talking of injuries, the latest one, of course, is Sarachi Quinny. He's a guy that, like, instantly. Why do you think he instantly was taken to the hearts by the Celtic fans? Why do you think that is? He's a favourite already, isn't he? He's kind of got that element of he's quite culty. There's something about the way he plays the game where he isn't very rigid. I don't think he's quite a bit of a free spirit. Goes rogue a wee bit, but he's got the pace to come back and defend. And then when everything's going well, he gets injured. It wasn't even a challenge. He was off the park and he pulls up as well.
Yeah, I think he's a very easy guy to like. I think we've seen similar things even with like Bernardo, maybe one or two other players. I'm just trying to scratch my mind here just as we're thinking about it. But guys that we sign that really, like, you can tell play for the badge quite quickly. They love being at Celtic. They love the size of the team and getting the opportunity to play for us and demonstrate that on the pitch by leaving it all out there on every occasion. They're just really hard not to like, even if you didn't think we needed to sign them or you thought they were a bad move or whatever. So yeah, but that's kind of the story of Sarachi. If you look at his whole career, it's been just like this. Plays well, gets injured. Plays well, gets injured, So that's why, with Tierney, we kind of expected this to happen in some way, shape or form. Thankfully, it's not quite came to him yet, despite, like, he's played way more minutes than I would have thought he would have by now. And that's great. A great sign, I think. But yeah, hopefully it's not too serious for him, because Sarachi, Osmond and Johnson needing hamstring surgery tomorrow. Like, hamstring surgery is no joke, as they say. It's just it's not going to be a wee 2 week. There's some surgeries that can be quite minor and maybe do some stuff, but normally a hamstring, they're needing surgery on it. It's normally quite a bad one. So
honestly, it's one of the ones as well where obviously Johnson, it's a reoccurring injury as well. So the second time rounds maybe just damaged that original even worse. So it's one of the ones that makes January even more important, and the situation we are in with a manager and obviously the system all being aligned. And you're thinking, how are we going to do that in the next 6 weeks?
Well, with we were chatting about this earlier. Kev kind of came back to me and said there'll probably always be two chefs, and I think that's probably right on the most part. But if we get to January with Martin O'Neill's not signing anybody. Let's that interim outfit is not deciding who we're signing or not. They're not going to be involved in he diddly haw. So, and that's kind of what I was thinking about, I suppose, when I was talking in that sense. Like, if it is just Tisdale and there's no other influencing element into the decision making, the talent ID or whatever, it would be very revealing, and you would maybe see a bit more of maybe what the master plan is supposed to look like if he had his own way. And I think that so I forgot where I started with that, sorry. But
no, that's a worry for me. That's a slight worry for me. to be honest with you, Connie, because I don't think the Tisdale things worked. Yet he's been given not autonomy as such, but he's been given a leading role. He's the head chef. I'm jumping in here. Kev actually said when he was talking about food, he actually went on about having to roll with it as well. I don't know if that was deliberate.
No.
I'm going to bring this up. Did you pick up on Neil talk? I did pick up on this, Chipper 67. A few of the commenters have as well. He was talking about KT being a great player in the past tense, right? So I think what he actually said, Ian Roy picks up on it as well. Martin speaking about KT in the past tense yesterday, saying he used to be a great player. He said something along the line of one of the interviews. Had it not been for the injuries, he would have been a great player. Or can you imagine the type of player he would have been? And honestly, I thought to myself, wow, nobody seemed to pick up on it. Kev, he was talking about almost like a Kieran Tierney light version that we've got. And I don't know if it was meant, because it came across, it was almost as if, oh, that's pretty sad actually to hear that. Tierney scored a cracking goal yesterday, of course he did. But he's not been he's not been the specimen that I expected him to be since he's come back.
No, he's no Sarachi. He hasn't got the energy of Sarachi bombing up and doing that wing. And when I heard what O'Neill says, my first thought was O'Neill was pointing out if it wasn't for the injuries, he wouldn't be back with us. Yeah. I think that's what Martin was actually meaning, rather than he was a great player. Yes, you can see he hasn't got the mobility. You can see that he doesn't go up and down the park like he used to. But he can still bring something, and I think he needs to adjust his game. And me as a fan, I'm going to need to adjust what I expect to see for Kieran Tierney going forward. And when you saw it last week in the semi-final, it took him a wee while to find his feet, truthfully. But then he put in a great ball for Osman's goal, and yesterday it was a great finish. His early crossing is absolutely fantastic, and I think that's where we're going to actually see the best of him. Maybe not byline Tierney crossing the ball in, but maybe sitting 30 yards out, pinging a ball into the box and making sure he doesn't get caught for pace. So I'm revising what I expect for Kieran Tierney, rather than saying that he's a good player. He still is a good player, but I think what Martin actually meant was if he didn't have the injuries at Arsenal, he wouldn't be anywhere near us.
No, that's a fair point. And I think also what Kev says about, the fact Kieran Tierney's had to adapt his game, Quinny, and we probably have to adapt to our expectations as well to fit the Kieran Tierney that we're watching at the moment, because it's not like he's not playing well. He played well yesterday. He scored his goal. Yeah, got his assist and all this stuff.
I still think he'll end up as centre half. I still think he'll end up moving in one at one point. And I think that will prolong his career.
He's the easy answer to a ball playing centre back, isn't he? Really, just the easy answer at this point. Finding those guys doesn't seem to be our strength, does it?
No. So when Anderlecht come back in for Liam Scales, and by the way, we want at least 10 million for him, then we can maybe shift Kieran Tierney in there. Rivers C3, nothing will change until Desmond is out. Right, I get it. I get that. Dermot Desmond obviously has appointed Martin O'Neill, so he's still appointing managers, the non-executive director, still doing that thing, having complete control over the football club, sitting on a Monday night, pinging out statements on the Celtic official channels. That's Dermot Desmond for you. Nothing will change. I get the concern there, because the people that are in place because they don't rock the boat, Kev. They don't rock the boat. They're all part of the same kind of thought process of the fans don't really know what they're talking about. Put the medals on the table. How many medals had Dermot Desmond won? Excuse me, I can't remember him scoring a goal. But it's bizarre that is his response when he's being questioned around his influence at Celtic. The answer actually is Celtic have won since Dermot Desmond became a shareholder at Celtic, 45 trophies since 1995. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But as I say, he is a non-exec director. Kev, nothing will change, I fear, whilst he's in the building. Now, if he's taken a flamethrower to the dugout, and now the club has done the same to the fan base with the Green Brigade getting banned, if he does that to the boardroom, Kev, we might see change. I just wouldn't hold my breath. Do you see anything happening at the AGM, Kev? Anything that might go down that route of change?
I think you will. Whether it's just putting new deck chairs on the Titanic. It's still to be seen, because whoever is going to appoint, this is where we've had a wee disagreement, and what I've been saying for 8 years, that that for the change that what we want to become a completely modern club, we need to fall off a cliff, and somebody needs to come in with £150 million and go, right, Desmond, go, and we move on. And who comes up with that £150 will be a complete and utterly different podcast and months. Anyway, I've always said that, but the bottom line is, you're talking about January there, and you only see a long-term plan in January. You'll see, right, let's just win the league. That is going to be their aim, who they bring in, and with what's going to happen in January. You might see a Tony Mowbray one day when you ended up with Robbie Keane and all these guys. I think, how many players did we end up on loan with at that window? You could see a short-termism there. I think you will see changes. I think you'll see the chairman being replaced. I think you might also see our chief executive maybe taking a role more suited for him, and they'll maybe bring in another chief executive. And that's probably the best we can hope for him. We can probably hope that we bring in a manager who will punch above his weight with what he's actually got in the back, the infrastructure in the back. I like, we're outcome based. Obviously, me and Quinny spoke about this on Friday. We look at the outcome rather than the process, how we get to the outcome. It doesn't matter if we get there by accident. The outcome is the bottom line for a lot of our support. And this is where a lot of the guys that we've been linked with give me the fear, because our support is that driven on the outcome, which is basically winning. And winning, doesn't matter how you win as long as you win the league. I don't think they'll put up with guys coming in and going like that. Oh, by the way, we've just been gubbed 3-0 at Ibrox. But the process is fine. The performance was good. Now remember Postecoglou. The reason that Postecoglou didn't get hung out to dry because he started winning, and he says that himself. He says, I had to win right away. But I don't think a lot of these guys were getting linked with actually maybe see that the exact same way. And that is quite, it's not scary for me to understand it, but I somehow don't think a lot of the support will actually have a look at it that way. Which, maybe it just shows the calibre that we're being linked with. And again, we act like a big football club. And you ask how the Danes that we played the other night there, and your Copenhagens and your Bruges actually do this, is because they didn't believe they're they didn't see money. We're the richest club, it's fine. We can just throw money at it. They haven't got that money to throw at it, so they're smarter in what they actually do. Whereas we could win the league in January by spending £30 million and blowing everybody out the water. And then you're dead with Desmond's, and that would go, see, we've won the league again. I've actually spent, this is what we've done, where you're going, no, that's wrong, by the way. The process, how you've ended up spending that £30 million is completely wrong. That's panic. What I would say when he talks about his outcome and his trophies, the biggest one which outshines them all is the fact that we haven't won a knockout game in Europe in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Can I argue with that?
That's why you should change. That's why you should have changed 8 years ago. When we started this podcast. Nothing's changed since we sat at your kitchen table, Paul. Nothing has changed, and nothing will change until.
We should do a special. We should do a special at my kitchen table just about the European endeavours, because we have been disagreeing for the last 8 years on it. We should bring the cameras in and do a special on that. I would quite enjoy it.
I want to see us win a knockout game in Europe before I snuff it.
Patrick McGilk's never seen it.
Aye.
In his lifetime.
And one of the things they says in that, one of the things that they says in that meeting to you, Paul, that they actually see participation in a group stage as a sign of success.
Yeah.
I'm going, oh my God. I says, it's shooty in for us to qualify for a group stage in European football.
It's harder not to, you're right. And so this
Aye.
season,
So that's
season's
no
a
success. That's no success. So, aye. No.
There's a real deep dive into that conversation that's just emerged in the last 4 or 5 minutes there, Kev, whereby I still think that you can win whilst building the process in the background. I don't think it's a trade-off. I don't think you've got to say, right, we're going to have 3 years of real pain here, but the outcome of that in 4 or 5 years is that we're going to have a structure in place. I think you can do both. Quinny, I don't know, you want to have the last word on that before we wrap up? That's us hit the 1 hour mark.
Yeah, I think you can certainly do both at once if you're a team like Celtic, certainly. I think if things aren't going to change, because Desmond's here, which was the kind of comment we kind of picked up with here, that's kind of, in the search for the new manager, I think you're trying to think about what buckets are we kind of looking at, what will the club go all out and get another like top drawer candidate like Brendan Rodgers was the first time around, or will we go in like the opposite end of the scale is find another Ange or a Dyla, somebody just from the wilderness who can maybe come in and step in. And again, I think like whoever they appoint will again be a really big indicator on, is there going to be this shake-up? There's rumours around board appointments changing. We see the boy Hamill's coming into the academy. So there might be a bit of a shake-up and all the rest of it. But I think you can do both at the same time. And I think what they're going to do, if this Nancy stuff is picking up momentum, is they are going to try and just Ange it again. Like, can you just go and sign 5 guys from the league that that are just going to absolutely rip it, and we'll get ourselves back on our feet, win the league, as Kev says, and then we'll deal with it again in the summer. So I think you can do both, and I think that kind of Ange way of doing it, where you bring a guy in, you let him have a few signings of his own to make the team fit his way, that are like under the radar transfer valuation wise. You bring them in, you put them on a stage, you move them on. That's kind of maybe the trick they're going to go for this time, rather than the Rodgers trick. So I think if you do it that way, we could easily come back to win the league. I think that's everyone's expectation at this point. But as Kev says, it's really not the thing. This window, this January, shouldn't be about winning the league. This January window should be about qualifying for the Champions League next year. Not just win the league, but we'll have a qualifier. Make sure we go into that qualifier already with as many problems as possible extinguished. And I think the manager's a big part of that as well. That's why you want the manager in sooner rather than later, because you give O'Neill the end of the season or to the end of January, again, you're just kicking the can down the road, and you're giving the next situation less time to be prime for the next challenge.
Yeah, that makes sense, Quinny. Yeah, I'm sure that we will be talking managers far more in the coming weeks. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. 2,300 live as we speak. It's brilliant to see some new names as well as the old ones as well. And it's great to see Kev back doing what he does. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. And thank you to Quinny and Kevin Graham for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.
Cheers.